Hello and a very good morning. You're watching the breakfast news on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Let's begin with the headlines. Pakistan targets nearly 40 BSF boats and villages in continued shelling across the line of control and international border. India hits back with heavy fire. Defence chiefs meet the defence minister on the matter. AIADMK leaders urge angry party workers to stay calm after the Karnataka High Court refused Jayalalitha's bail plea yesterday. The court equated corruption with violating human rights. Prime Minister Narendra Modi attacks Thackeray cousins directly in Maharashtra, refutes allegations of his government's plans to divide Maharashtra. US-led coalition carries out massive airstrikes against Islamic State targets in Kobani, even as the Turkish president warns that the key Syrian town is about to fall to IS militants. Massive refugee influx into Turkey. And India to take on West Indies today in Kochi in the first ODI of the 5-match series. Well, Indo-Pak tensions have escalated on the line of control and international border as Pak troops continued shelling Indian border posts and the BSF returning heavy fire. Defence chiefs met Defence Minister Arun Jaitley late last night on the matter. Nearly 2,500 people living near the border have been shifted to makeshift camps to escape Pakistani shelling on civilian areas. Here's a report. Indian and Pakistani forces exchanged heavy fire on Tuesday, a day after people were killed on both sides. Pakistani forces reportedly fired at 40 Indian Army posts.
तकरीबन 40 पोस्टों के ऊपर हमारे फायर हुआ है और हमारे सारे पोस्टों से उस पर जवाबी कार्रवाई हुई है.
Monday's casualties were the highest death toll among non-military personnel in a single day since 2003. People living along the line of control said that they were living in fear due to the continuous firing. Over the last 7 days, hundreds of villagers have fled their homes in the remote Kashmir region.
9:30 बजे रात फायर शुरू हुयो और सवेरे 4:30 बजे तक गम रहो. कोई नहीं सुतो, ना किसी का बच्चा सुता, ना किसी के बाल बच्चों सुतो. रात बैस के कटी छप के वहां दरो अखबार में के है छत पर गिरा को तो छत भी फाड़ दिया उनको गोड़ो तो अंदर भी नहीं सुता.
एक बकरी ऑन स्पॉट मर गई और एक गाय 2 घंटे के बाद में एक गाय भी मर गया. इनका एक छोटा बच्चा है हमारा अंशु, इसके बाजू में एक फिंगर लगी है.
पाकिस्तान तो हर रोज फायरिंग कर रहा है. लोग बहुत तंग है, पूरी रात लोग सोए नहीं हैं. कई लोग रात को जो है बच्चों सहित जो है पीछे चले जाते हैं, सुबह आते हैं. यहाँ किसान लोग हैं, सब किसानी पर खेती पर ही डिपेंड करते हैं सब लोग.
On the Indian side, the firing from across the border killed 5 villagers and left 30 injured. A Pakistani military statement said 4 civilians, including 2 children, were killed on its side. Strategic experts said that the hostilities being answered bullet for bullet from the Indian side indicated a certain determination on the part of the political establishment.
The Pakistani Foreign Office has also sought to draw international attention to this, as they have done in the past. On the Indian side, we are now seeing a certain determination, a political determination, that whenever Pakistan behaves in this manner, the local response on the ground will be swift and it will be very, very effective.
Home Minister Rajnath Singh said Pakistan needed to learn that the newly elected Indian government will take a more aggressive approach if it comes under attack on the border. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television. Moving on now, security has been beefed up across Tamil Nadu in the wake of sporadic violence after the Karnataka High Court rejected AIADMK Supremo's bail plea yesterday. Party leaders, including Chief Minister Paneerselvam, have appealed for calm. Here's a report on the developments in the case over the last 24 hours.
Firecrackers go off at Poise Garden, Chennai. For a while, it seemed like this was Diwali come early for these AIADMK supporters. These celebrations were in response to some news reports out of Bangalore, which said their leader Jayalalitha was given conditional bail by the Karnataka High Court. But soon the celebrations turned sour. The firecrackers were replaced by slogan-shouting cadres. Collective depression was back on the streets of Chennai. The police were back to fortifying their positions and trying to keep the crowds away from Jaya's residence. The AIADMK General Secretary and former Tamil Nadu Chief Minister has been in jail since September 27th. She was convicted in a disproportionate assets case after a trial that lasted 18 years. The court sentenced her to 4 years in prison and imposed a fine of 100 crore rupees. But today there was a twist in the bail hearing. Interestingly, the special public prosecutor in this case, Bhavani Singh, after opposing the bail in the morning session, did a U-turn by dropping all objections when the court reconvened in the afternoon.
This Honorable Court of our High Court of Karnataka has dismissed both the applications. That is, one is suspension of sentence, then the granting of the bail. Now no other way, sir. After obtaining a copy of the Honorable High Court order, our senior counsel Judge Malani, after going through the judgments, will go and make an appeal before the apex court of the country, the Supreme Court.
This led to some enthusiastic AIADMK supporters as well as eager news channels to believe that Jayalalitha had actually been given relief by the court. In the end, it proved to be a false start. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Moving on now, the International Monetary Fund has forecast a 5.6% growth rate for India this year, up from its earlier estimate of 5.4%. The IMF cited renewed confidence in the market due to a series of economic reforms pursued by the new government as the reason behind the change in its estimate. The IMF added that the post-election recovery of confidence in India also provides an opportunity for the country to embark on much-needed structural reforms. Earlier on Monday, the World Bank had said that India was set to grow by 6.4% in 2015-16 after a 5.6% expansion in 2014-15. Well, 16 districts in Odisha are on high alert after the Indian Met Department cautioned the administration about a possible cyclonic storm. The government, however, appealed to people not to panic. The state government is constantly monitoring the situation in close coordination with the IMD. Citizens have been advised to remain watchful about the situation. A depression in the North Andaman Sea is expected to move northwestwards and intensify into a cyclonic storm. Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik, who returned from New Delhi, said that the government is prepared for the possible cyclonic storm.
The government is prepared for the cyclonic storm that is coming.
Well, let's now bring you up to date with all the news from the poll-bound states of Haryana and Maharashtra. Well, the who's who of the Union Cabinet, from the Prime Minister to the Home Minister to the External Affairs Minister, are out campaigning for the upcoming polls in Maharashtra and Haryana. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is once again the star campaigner for the BJP. On Tuesday, for the first time, Modi attacked both the Thackeray cousins, Uddhav and Raj, directly, saying no one can separate Mumbai from Maharashtra. The Prime Minister's remarks come against the backdrop of MNS chief Raj Thackeray reportedly accusing Modi of having a hidden agenda to split Mumbai from Maharashtra. Modi also criticized the Congress NCP government for being corrupt. He called for a change of guard in Maharashtra to end corruption.
कहते हैं महाराष्ट्र के टुकड़े होने वाले हैं। इस देश में कोई ऐसा पैदा हुआ है जो छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज की इस भूमि के टुकड़े कर पाए? भाइयों बहनों, जब तक मैं दिल्ली में बैठा हूं, मैं आपको विश्वास दिलाता हूं, दुनिया की कोई ताकत महाराष्ट्र की एकता को तोड़ नहीं पाएगी।
And for more of all the election-related buzz and stories from the campaign trail, watch our special election bulletin, Verdict 2014, every day at 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Well, it's time for a short break now, but on the other side, more people being tested for Ebola in Spain after a nurse in the country tested positive for the virus yesterday. That and much more on the other side. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, Islamic State militants in Syria are close to taking complete control of the key border town of Kobani that will give the group a stronghold over the Syria-Turkey border. Amid street clashes between IS militia and the Kurd defense, the US-led coalition carried out fresh airstrikes last night. The Kurds say that this comes too little, too late.
IS spreading its wings as fighters advance to the southwest of Syrian Kurdish town of Kobani overnight. Rising concerns, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said that Kobani is about to fall to the militants despite fresh US-led airstrikes on the group. Fresh reports suggest that US carried out 8 airstrikes in the region.
Havadan bombalamak suretiyle bu sorunlar çözülmez.
لا يمكن حل المشاكل من خلال القصف الجوي.
İşte bir IŞİD terör örgütü.
Clashes broke out in Turkey as Kurds held nationwide demonstrations against the IS assault on Kobani. Police fired tear gas and water cannons to disperse protesters who burnt cars and tires as they took to the streets. 5 people were reportedly killed in violent protests. Clashes also erupted in Turkey's biggest city, Istanbul, as hundreds of protesters demanded the government to do more to protect the Syrian Kurdish town of Kobani from IS. Protests and demonstrations were also held across the world by Kurds. French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius assured that his country would help Turkey to curtail the IS advance. UN meanwhile urged the international community to act immediately as Kobani looks all set to fall to Islamic State onslaught.
Une tragédie qui se joue à Kobani et nous devons tous réagir. Pour Kobani, nous nous mobilisons. Ce matin même, j'ai appelé mon homologue turc et le président de la République française fera de même avec le président turc cet après-midi.
City of Kobani on the northern border of Syria, close to Turkey, has been under siege now for 3 weeks. There were 400,000 inhabitants. They are fighting with normal weapons, whereas the ISIS has got tanks and mortars. The international community needs to defend them.
Across the Turkish border, 2 Islamic State flags could be seen flying over the eastern side of Kobani. Airstrikes and sporadic gunfire echoes in the region. Islamic State wants to take Kobani in order to strengthen its grip on the border area and consolidate the territorial gains it has made in Iraq and Syria in recent months. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reported that at least 412 people were killed in the past 3 weeks during the battle for Kobani. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Joining me on the show this morning is Professor A.K. Pasha, Director, Gulf Studies Program, JNU. Very good morning, Professor, and thank you for joining on the program this morning. This particular town that we're talking about of Kobani, in fact, it's a very crucial town, and both sides, we've seen that the Kurds have been engaging the ISIS militants for several weeks now and are trying to, keep some kind of sanity in that place. But Islamic State is pushing on even more right now.
Yes, I think ultimately they have achieved their target of taking over this crucial city dominated by the Kurds because this paves the way for the 100-kilometer border or more than that which the IS now controls. It has 2 implications. One is that it underscores the inability of the airstrikes by United States and other allied powers against IS. It shows that the IS cannot be degraded by Air Force air attacks alone. Number 2, it has the potential to escalate beyond Syria. As your report just pointed out, it has led to tension in at least 12 Turkish cities. And it will impact the stability there.
Indeed.
And in Iraq also it has become very clear that the Kurds who live in all of these 3-4 states are very agitated that they have been allowed to take over this crucial city, dominated, as I said, on the trade routes between the 2 countries. So the Peshmergas who went from Iraq also were unable to stem the tide of the Islamic State fighters.
It's interesting, it's very crucial that you brought up that point, like how the airstrikes, everyone, even the Australians have joined the airstrikes now, French are carrying out, Canadians, everyone has joined the airstrikes, but still it does not seem to be denting the forward movement of Islamic State militants. I mean, is it required now that, these particular countries should put troops on the ground to ensure that, they assist the Kurds and the Peshmergas?
That is what the Kurds were pleading for the last 3-4 weeks when they were under siege. Hundreds and thousands have fled to Turkey and other parts of Syria, and many have been killed. I mean, we don't know exact number of the civilian casualties, both from the Islamic State's attacks and the airstrikes also, because some of the airstrikes also could not target the IS militants because they have been moving in and out of the city. So in that way, civilian casualties have been growing up. In that way, the boots on the ground, which we have been talking about, nobody seems to be willing to send. Neither Turkey, nor the West, nor the Saudis. It underscores the dilemma of the international community to stem the tide of this rising control of the IS militants over and above. They are fighting in Iraq, in Mosul, in various other parts of Iraq, then in Syria, then also in Lebanon. So, they have multiple fronts which they have been tackling. It underscores the firepower of the Islamic militants in all of these three major theaters.
Indeed, it does. It does. Another issue really as far as Turkey is concerned is the fact that there are several thousand refugees who have lined up all across the border trying to go into Turkey because they believe that they're going to get some kind of stability there in Turkey at least. Now, that is another problem for the Turkish government to deal with, isn't it?
Yes, of course. I mean, many of them earlier fled to Jordan, to Lebanon, to Iraq. But Turkey has been receiving hundreds and thousands, and they have been able to provide not only health care, but also camps and facilities for these very desperate people who are looking to save their lives, their families, so on and so forth. But Turkey has its own limitations because this spillover into the Turkish domestic scene will undercut the political stability there because the Kurds there, who form about 28% in the eastern part, are also agitated that Turks are not doing enough because Turkey also is a contributor to the growth of the Islamic State. So in that way, this contradictory policy of having supported these militants earlier, and then these militants are also treated in Turkish hospitals, the injured, so on and so forth. So this contradictory policy is going to play out in the coming weeks and months and expose the Turkish inability to stem this tide, as is the case from the Western countries. The only area where they have been able to control is in some parts of Iraq, where the Iraqi army has pushed out the Islamic militants. But there also the cities and towns and villages have been devastated, and the locals are fearful of going to these states because they have been filled with bombs and IEDs, and the locals fear that these Islamic militants might come back.
Indeed.
And the Iraqi Shia army is perceived as a Shia. Iraqi army is perceived as Shia militants, composed of, and they have been very ruthless against the Sunnis. So all of these pan out and create a very explosive situation in this region. It does
create an explosive situation, a very complex situation as well in that particular region. Thank you so much, Professor Ricky Pasha, for joining us on the program and sharing your valuable inputs on that subject. Moving on now, of course, doctors in Madrid are testing 3 more people for Ebola after a Spanish nurse became the first person known to have contracted the deadly virus outside West Africa. Health officials say 52 other people are being monitored. The first Ebola case adds a whole new dimension to this disease, which has already claimed more than 3,400 lives.
A Spanish nurse became the first person to contract Ebola outside Africa, casting doubts over the measures taken by Spain to control the deadly disease. The nurse had tended 2 priests who contracted Ebola in Africa. Spanish officials say they still had to find out how the unnamed nurse contracted the infection.
Sí, un poco. Porque tampoco sabemos cómo es el contagio. No sabemos si va por el aire o directamente por saliva o cómo. No sabemos. Es lo que nos dicen. Y yo ahora que estoy acatarrada pues estoy un poco preocupada, sí.
Bueno, la verdad es que ha sido sorprendente que haya ocurrido aquí con todas las medidas de seguridad, pero nada más no puedo decir otra cosa.
Meanwhile, President Barack Obama said his administration was working on additional protocols for screening airplane passengers to identify people who might have Ebola.
The ability of people who are infected to carry that across borders is something that we have to take extremely seriously. At the same time, it is important for Americans to know the facts, and that is that because of the measures that we've put in place, as well as our world-class health system, and the nature of the Ebola virus itself, which is difficult to transmit, the chances of an Ebola outbreak in the United States is extremely low.
Apart from Liberia, Ebola has wreaked havoc in Sierra Leone and Guinea. It has also spread to Nigeria and Senegal, but is considered contained in those countries. The latest case in Spain has, however, raised several questions. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, in India, the Bombay High Court has asked the centre to ensure that all Ebola screening equipment at airports is in working order. Some more international news now. Protest leaders in Hong Kong have agreed to hold formal talks with the government. The talks will be held on Friday. Most of the pro-democracy protesters have receded from these streets. However, students made it clear that the talks would be called off if the remaining demonstrators were cleared from the streets by force. Pro-democracy activists are protesting at China's plans to vet candidates when Hong Kong holds elections in 2017.
We have proposed 2 items of the meeting. First is the constitutional basis of the constitutional development. That is the first item. The second item is the legal requirement of the constitutional development.
This has been the government officials' tactics that in the consultation period they use the legal problem to they emphasize the legal problem instead of the political problem. We do not try to mention that the legal problem is not important, but we believe that what is more important is the political problem.
Well, let's now bring you up to date with the other international news and updates in our segment Global Buzz. Well, the 2014 Nobel Prize for Physics has been awarded to a trio of scientists in Japan and the US for the invention of blue light emitting diodes. Professors Isamu Akasaki, Hiroshi Amano and Shuji Nakamura made the first blue LEDs in the early 1990s. This enabled a new generation of bright, energy-efficient white lamps as well as color LED screens. The winners will share the prize money of 8 million kroner, the equivalent of 0.7 million pounds, Myanmar to release 3,000 prisoners. Well, Myanmar has pledged to release thousands of prisoners a month before a Southeast Asian summit, which US President Barack Obama and other leaders from outside the region are expected to attend. A Myanmar government website said that President Thein Sein has pardoned 3,073 prisoners for the sake of peace and stability and the rule of law. Almost all the prisoners have been jailed for ordinary crimes, not for political activity. At least 16 suspected militants were killed in clashes with the Egyptian army in Sinai Peninsula. The military raids were targeted at Sinai-based Ansar Beit al-Maqdis militants. 6 other militants were arrested, while 6 shelters and houses used by terrorists were also wiped out in the raids. North Sinai has witnessed many violent attacks by militants since the toppling of ex-President Hosni Mubarak. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani has called for greater academic freedom in Iran's universities, calling for removal of restrictions and limited innovation. Rouhani called for admission of more foreign students and lecturers, dismissing conservatives' fears that more interaction with the outside world would encourage espionage. He has received strong opposition from the hardliners who are against his policies of international engagement. British anti-terrorism police arrested 4 men in their early 20s in London as part of an investigation into Islamist-related militancy. The officials told that the arrests may have foiled the early stages of planning an attack in the UK, adding that one individual had spent time in Syria. Armed police were present at one of the raids, but no shots were fired. Moving on to some sports news now. Here are some major developments in the sports arena in our sports wrap. India will take on West Indies in the opening encounter of the 5-match ODI series at Kochi today. West Indies will be without their ace batsman Chris Gale and bowler Sunil Narayan. India have added a new face in the team in the form of left-arm leg spinner Kuldeep Yadav, who will be replacing Ravichandran Ashwin. India are at the top of the ICC rankings, while West Indies are at the 8th spot. Indian sprinter Duty Chand has started a court of arbitration for sport appeal against her indefinite ban from competition. Chand's appeal is the first to challenge rules the International Association of Athletics Federation introduced in the wake of the Caster Semenya affair in 2009. Chand was barred from competing against women after her testosterone level were found to be high, making her ineligible to compete as a female athlete. Formula One driver Jules Bianchi's condition is reported to be critical but stable. An official statement by Bianchi's family and F1 team Marussia said that the 25-year-old driver suffered a diffuse axonal injury as a result of the horrific accident in Japan. The World Motorsports governing body FIA has asked a race director for a report on the crash. Andy Murray reached the second round of the Shanghai Masters after beating his Russian compatriot Teimuraz Gabashvili 6-1, 7-5. The Briton broke his opponent 3 times to take the first set, but was broken twice in the second and had to dig deep to avoid a decider. Murray will next face Jerzy Janowicz of Poland. Well, that's it on this edition of the Bulletin. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good day.